Hello everybody, this is Josh Bycer from GameWisdom.com. Welcome to today's Critical Thought. We are talking the subject of bad games, or what is a bad game. Before we begin, just a little bit of recap of what's going on. As I've been saying, we are still looking for our monthly funding we need to support Game Wisdom and myself. So if you've been enjoying the content here, be sure to check out the Patreon campaign right there. Donations would be greatly appreciated, and we can hit some of those goals. It will mean more content for everyone to enjoy. Also, in a little bit of exciting news, if you haven't heard, I'm going to be putting on a live show for tomorrow. That will be Thursday at 6:30 EST. It's going to be here on the YouTube channel. Basically, a recap of the post of the week. If you have any questions about design topics, things I've wrote, anything like that, be sure to show up. And if you are one of my developer or friend contacts on Skype and would like to pose a question live and talk to me here, be sure to send me a ring on Skype. I'll see about maybe opening that up for more if there is enough interest in it. But let's get to our main topic, and that is talking about the subject of bad games. You've most likely, if you're watching this on YouTube, have watched a video of someone calling a game bad or crappy or sucky and all that good stuff. But trying to determine what is a bad game, I think is actually quite difficult. My example here you should probably know from Lionhead Studios. This is The Movies. This was one of the most anticipated games for me from the developer. They got me with Black and White, and then they got me with The Movies, unfortunately. Game just did not turn out well at all. But talking about whether a game is objectively good or bad is very difficult, especially if you're trying to do it professionally. My post that I wrote about the failings of the 7 to 9 review score is a good indicator of that problem. As I said in that piece, a good game is a good game just as a bad game is a bad game. No one in their right mind would go out with the explicit purpose to make a horrible game. It doesn't make financial sense. Because of that, many games that are considered bad have quality elements to them. In a lot of my reviews, even of the games that I like, I will still point out things that either didn't work or that I had trouble with, because all games have good and bad elements to them. But what makes a game bad, I mean outright bad, is a little bit trickier. Now, someone commented a while ago that there are, of course, absolute bad games. We see this a lot in the shovelware category of indie games, developers simply copying other people's assets and trying to put something together slapdash to make a quick buck. These are all awful games, and I am very sure we can easily find a lot of those in a quick minute. But when we're talking about games that are put together, even stuff like games like No Man's Sky, trying to think of some modern releases of Deus Ex that just came out, any game that you can think of from a AAA developer, there's always going to be good and bad elements to them. And trying to figure out whether one of these games is good or bad beyond the 7 to 9 review score is where things get very challenging. A concept I've talked about a lot lately is harmonizing game design, and when a game just feels like every part of it just works together well. And when I think about games that way, it becomes a little bit easier to determine when something doesn't work. Going back to The Movies, not only were the elements of this game were overhyped, as per Pierre Molyneux's MO, but there were elements that just did not work in it. They were talking about being able to create custom movies and stuff like that, but it became very much limited to single elements. The running a movie studio gameplay just didn't work. And again, when we start looking at elements that don't work or aren't fully developed, it becomes very easy to say whether or not a game is good or bad. I mean, you can look at all the little blurb here. Again, you probably can't see it, but I can read you a few choice quotes. Make movies your way, control everything, run the entire lot. These things did not happen. And if we're talking about games from Pierre Molyneux that would fall into the bad category, I think you all know what I'm about to bring up. Goddess. I really was looking forward to Goddess. This was a game that I was hoping was going to be the I guess the redemption of Lionhead or Pierre Molyneux, I guess in general. And not only did it not happen, but it became one of the worst examples of crowdfunding and the dangers of what can happen there. 1 second, I gotta take a quick sip. And yes, I was one of the few people who got to play it. And I didn't play because they sent me a press copy. Oh no, I bought off a site which, thanks to like trading credit, I basically got it for like, I think like negative $1. I paid for it. And it was just horrible. It was just horrible. And going back to this concept of harmonizing game design, it was not there. Elements just felt out of place. The game wanted to be a God game, but also a real-time strategy game, and also a free-to-play microtransaction game. And again, you can just see all these different things trying to be put together very haphazardly, and nothing really worked. The game, you can also tell, and here's another really good example, and this is good for budding game reviewers or game developers. If a game goes through monumental changes through patches, I'm talking about systems being torn apart or brand new things being added, from patch to patch, that's a good sign that the game has no concrete development path, and they're just pretty much throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks. And that's why I'm with Goddess. When I played it originally, it was like the game was only 50% done, and it was horrible. And then I got the next patch, like, oh, the game is now 60% done. And it was completely different in terms of its base mechanics and systems. A good game should have its foundation pretty much established very early. And I'm talking within maybe a few weeks to a few months of development. You should have a good idea of what you want your game to be. Again, if you're changing your game from real-time strategy to turn-based, or adding in completely new mechanics and systems after, working on it for 2 years, there's a problem. Duke Nukem Forever is the classic example of that. The game, I think, was in development for 12 years. And they just kept adding and taking and revising and altering the engine. And again, in that span of time, they could have released probably 5 or 6 Duke Nukem games of sufficient quality. We didn't get that. Now, of course, when we talk about games being bad, it's still somewhat subjective. It's very hard to find objectively bad elements. There are a few big ones that stick out. Besides, as we talk about with mechanics just not fitting in, we can say if the control scheme just feels inadequate or hard to play. And of course the big one, bugs. Does your game actually work? Is it playable? If your game literally crashes every time you click start, well, I think we know whether that's a good or bad game or not. But it is easier to talk about good games. And it's kind of interesting. I've interviewed people who've either reviewed games or made games, and it's very easy to talk about when a game hooks us. I mean, I can spend an hour talking about the Talos Principle, the Swapper, Four-Sided Fantasy, Renowned Explorers, like it's nothing. But when you have to sit down and explain why a game doesn't work, it becomes that much harder. And again, we're going beyond just saying this game sucks, or this game makes me angry, or anything like that. And that's where game criticism becomes very fascinating to talk about. A few years ago, I actually made a post trying to define bad elements. And even then, it's still very hard to get an objective measure. And going back to the 7 to 9 review score, it's the same thing. Why is a game that gets a 7 or an 8 either objectively better or worse? I mean, seriously, why, if a game gets a 7 or an 8, what is the qualifying elements? Again, you can say that something didn't work, but I can say something doesn't work in even a game that I would give a 9 or a 10 out of. it doesn't give you an accurate representation. And again, this is one of those topics that it's not going to be easily solved here, no matter how much we talk about. So my question for you folks watching is, what would be some objectively quantifiers of whether or not a game is good or bad? Again, we can say when a game works. We can say what makes Mario amazing, or why people love Call of Duty multiplayer. But trying to find when a game doesn't work is just, again, very sticky to get into. But that's going to be today's critical thought. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them below. If you have any suggestions for future critical thoughts, let me know as well. As I said, if you enjoy this content as well as the stuff on Game Wisdom, be sure to check out the Patreon campaign below. And be sure to tune in Thursday at 6:30 EST here, where we'll be going live. And all the fun and excitement of a live broadcast. Anyway, once again, I'm Josh Bycer. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time. Take care. Thanks for watching the video, everybody. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment, of course, share your friends. It always helps out. Check out game-wisdom.com, where I examine the art and science of games. You can follow me on Twitch and Twitter under GW Bycer for the latest updates of new content. And be sure to check out our Patreon campaign. You can find us on Patreon under Game Wisdom if you would like to donate and help contribute to keeping Game Wisdom going. Your donations can not only give us the monthly funding we need to keep supporting ourselves, but if we can hit some goals, it will mean more great content for you, and there are some nifty little rewards there as well. Thanks again for watching this video, and be sure to tune into the next one real soon.